All right. I talked about databasing your perceptions, and this is also a video for To Be Serious on Language 7.0. I'll get there. But I mentioned databasing your perceptions. Didn't seem to really be an obvious notion, evidently. It's about neutral storage, so let me just describe this really quickly. Okay, so we're talking about collecting perceptions. Okay, my premise, the supposition here is that data collection is best served by emotionally neutral means. Now, I'll talk a little bit about the complexity of this. It doesn't have to be perfectly, doesn't have to even be possible to have something perfectly emotionally neutral. The point is, this is the ruler against your measurements, against which your measurements are made. Some idea of emotional neutrality. Okay, now some idiot on the internet said it's a good point though. Never experiment when you have an emotional investment in the outcomes. Okay, so using the term databasing your perceptions just means to store them honestly. Okay, to be honest about them. Okay, now to be honest means, yeah, there's going to be emotional content, so you need an emotional database within this database system. So if it is emotional for database purposes, you say to yourself, if a perception is, oh, that goes in emotion file XYZ. Oh, this thought had anger associated. Oh, this thought had, you know, affection associated. Oh, this thought had embarrassment associated. And just by identifying that, you can attempt to neutralize the irrational effects of these emotions. That should be an E. Okay. Okay, and then you can calculate weighting factors based on these categories. And I suggest that you should, right? It might not make your life better. I'm just saying it'll make you figure things out with more clarity. It might make the world worse to see it more clear. Be that as it may. So, for example, if I do come up with an angry thought that's also aggressive, I'm going to have said, oh, well, I had this is I'm going to weigh that. I'm going to say, hey, you know, that was an angry thought. So multiply that by zero point zero 0.01. Yeah, there's some validity in the idea there. It's the part that made me angry, but now it's inflamed by emotions that are not as rationally stable as what we're going for. Okay, but don't obsessively compulse over it because nothing is completely emotionally neutral, right? It's just like you don't clean your house and get every germ, but by cleaning your house, you get a lot of them, enough to make a difference. Okay, so just trying to do this, trying to be an emotionally clean, reasoning person. That's kind of an awkward way of putting it, but um, is the goal, you know. And it turns out many thoughts are emotionally neutral enough. So, boom, language 7.0, to be serious. Value neutral terms empower value statements. Value neutral terms empower value statements. It's related to what I was just talking about. But all the words are going to change, so it might not be obvious to all of you that this is the same subject. Okay, so language 7.0, you have value judgment scale. And the point is to remove value judgment from terms. Okay? Express value judgments in sentences and paragraphs instead. Right? So if a word like system brings with it some sort of emotional impact, remove that. Express things about negative systems in sentences that use the word system. And qualify things within the predicate such that you have made a value statement. It shouldn't be in the words. That clutters the reasoning. It means three words that you might want to use together if you could use their technical sense. You can't because they have contradictory emotional senses. And sadly, everybody has a little bit different emotional sense. Whereas technically, we can have similar technical sense. So this process enables technical terms to be used whenever possible. Not all terms can be made technical, but a term like system can, characterized mathematically and everything else. It's a very good technical term, and I think we should have more technical terms in our natural conversation. And I would ask you to think, what would happen if all terms were technical? Would make a cold universe? No, I don't think so. It just means that you'd have to make phrases and sentences to write poetry. You couldn't write poetry with just one word. Oh dear, nobody really needs to do that anyway. So the whole issue was perception analysis. My point is that neutral value terms make language more flexible. The word parasite should mean a particular kind of biological survival mechanism, a relationship within a super system. Some playing a certain role, that's a parasite. Yet we generally were going to form sentences about parasites that don't flatter them and put them in our negative value system. But not always. Okay, there's the African fig wasp, there's symbiotic crossover, there's a lot of interesting things. So maybe most people don't think of ideas where they need this flexibility, but I do. I specialize in it. I deal with it all the time, and just in general. Okay, I need this kind of flexibility for my terms. I need technical terms that operate more cleanly because I don't deal with clean subjects. And professionally, for example, programming is not mathematics. You just got a real practical problem. And you're trying to clean it up so it can be designed. So design will have an impact. So things can be predictable. So you know what's happening. So you have some coherency in your system, and you can prove or show that you do. Right? And I need this kind of flexibility for that. But this belief doesn't come from that career path. This belief comes from prior to this career path. Right? In general, this is the kind of philosophy I'm interested in. I'm interested in fine work that requires more flexibility than we have in value-laden terminology. I know it's somewhat of an impossible goal. Humans think metaphorically. They're going to use a lot of metaphorically thick terms, things that do bring frames together. There's an efficiency and a compression there. So what? Philosophy uses language to get work done. So if people don't want to talk in this language for their purposes, I'm still left with my purposes. And I think that it's important that value statements in sentences can be made more clear, with less assumptions made, when you can say, look, all the words in here, if one strikes you as a negative thing or the words seem to crisscross in their poetic entailments, this is a clue as to what is meant by a technical term. Technical terms are those you remove value judgments from. Right? Does that make the world cold? No, I don't think so. Not that anybody said otherwise. So the point of analysis is still, estimating value, right? And there's still color, quality, artistic presence. A language like this, you could easily talk about art, do art critique, even write, just as poetically. But it's just presented at the sentence level where it belongs. Yeah. So that's the language I speak. Hello.